Welcome to a special episode of the Freedom California podcast. Join us this week as Ashley Varner, Vice President of Communications, and Mariah Gondeiro, lead California litigator, discuss a new lawsuit filed on behalf of Shasta County residents aimed at reopening schools, and a federal judge in Pennsylvania declaring their lockdown laws illegal. Stay tuned.
We wanted to do a quick follow-up to our episode 6 of the podcast where we discussed remarks caught on a hot mic by the LA County Health Director, Barbara Ferrer, where she admitted she would not reopen LA County schools until after the election. So this admission basically confirmed what a lot of people across the country had been suspecting for weeks, which is that a lot of these COVID restrictions are just power grabs by politicians, health officials, and teachers unions to play into a political agenda that keeps the American people unnecessarily inconvenienced and miserable. So wanted to have Mariah come back on with us. We weren't prepared to talk about this last time we taped the podcast, but I'm to tell you that the Freedom Foundation has filed a lawsuit against the California Governor, Gavin Newsom, the state attorney general, and local school district officials in northern Shasta County to reopen the schools and get the kids back into classroom instruction. So, Mariah, thank you for taking the time to go through this with us. We want to talk about the lawsuit. You are the attorney on the case. You're the one pushing this forward. Thanks for being available to shed some light on this.
Absolutely.
So first of all, please explain to our audience, because this may be breaking news for some people who are watching us today. On what basis did we file this lawsuit?
So we filed the lawsuit under the California Constitution on the grounds that the state, Governor Newsom's state orders violate the children's educational rights to a quality education. And we are also seeking, in particular, a violation of the equal protection on the theory that the state policies disproportionately impact disadvantaged students.
In California, I've never heard of this before, Mariah, but they actually have it enshrined in their state constitution,
Yep.
The guaranteed right to a quality education.
Yep.
And is that I've never heard of that before. So can you just tell us, how many states do you know have this? Is this new or distinct to California?
No, it's not unusual. It's not unusual. I think most states want to make sure that their constituents get the best education that they can, which is why they enshrine it in their own constitution. So this isn't a rare thing. What's rare, though, I think, is the state, trying to hijack the school districts and forcing them to implement policies that are not in the best favor of the students.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so we have these parents and students that we're representing. How many parents, how many students, what are we looking at here?
So four parents and 8 children, but the lawsuit has statewide implications. So even though there's only 12 people mentioned in the lawsuit, if we win, it would affect all students in California.
Okay. And what are we hoping to accomplish for the families and for statewide? What do we hope to get out of this lawsuit?
We want to make sure that kids get back into school, because the research shows, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, they've all said that students need to be in school. The in-person instruction is imperative for their educational development. And so we don't want the kids to get left behind. We want to make sure that they're getting the best education they possibly can so they have a bright future.
And clearly we're establishing that the best education is not hybrid learning, which we're learning a lot about more, but it's a mixture.
Yes, it is a mixture. A lot of schools, even schools in counties with very low case counts, have implemented this hybrid model, which requires students go to school 2 days a week and then the remainder of the days are at home. But that's not sufficient. The taxpayers didn't pay for a part-time education. They paid for a full-time education for their children.
Exactly. And so we maintain in the lawsuit that all of the children have suffered some type of negative effect. Can you kind of explain what some of them are?
Well, all the students, since these forced remote learning models, they've had to undergo them, they've kind of lost the motivation to excel. They've developed anxiety problems. They're just not getting the social interaction they need, so it's affected their mood. And then the disadvantaged student that we're representing, he is falling way behind. He has alcohol fetal spectrum disorder, he's ADHD, he has auditory learning disorders. He needs more care, more resources, and he's not getting any of that. And so his future is looking, pretty dim right now, unless the school acts quickly and making sure he's getting the resources he needs.
Yeah, that's a particularly hard case to hear about. This little boy, I understand it, he isn't even going to school at his own home. He has to go to a relative's home because he doesn't have the kind of high-speed internet access that he needs to even get the less than quality education, correct?
Yeah. When his parents are working parents, like most parents, they can't babysit their kids, so they have to, take them to daycare or have someone else watch them.
Yeah.
And he's at his aunt and uncle's house, but they don't have the time to give him the one-on-one individualized care he needs.
Yeah, and that's a sad case. We also have one of the little boys we're representing is on anxiety medication for the first time in his life. That's heartbreaking to hear. But on the flip side, Mariah, we want to be fair. So what do you have to say to parents who aren't ready to send their kids back to school 5 days a week?
Well, we hear you, and that's why we're on the side of freedom and individual choice. We want to make sure that all parents and all children, have a decision in this matter, and we would be in favor of a model that allows reasonable accommodations for children and parents who are at high risk of contracting of COVID-19. But the reality is the risk, for the most part, is just not there for children. They pose the disease poses a very, very minimal risk to children, but the risk to educational development is still far greater. But again, for those parents who are scared to send them back, we want to see more choices. We want to see, remote learning for them, but for the kids and the parents that want to go back to school, they should go back to school.
And so then by the same token, what do you say to the teachers who are not ready to return? They are very nervous or have their own concerns about getting back into the classroom 5 days a week with these kids.
Well, I think the teachers want what's best for the students. All teachers, that's what they should want. And again, the research shows that it's in the best interest for the students to be in school full time. But if they are at risk of contracting the virus, then we would be in favor of a model that implements reasonable accommodations for them.
Yeah, well, and we have seen as more of the science comes out, and I know that you are fond of saying, Governor Newsom tells us that we ought to follow the science, and perhaps he should take his own advice. So we are learning more and more that kids are not highly susceptible. They don't tend to be transmitters, and we want parents to have educational choice. So great. What are the next steps in the case? Where does it go from here?
So it was filed on the 10th, and from that date, the defendants have 30 days to respond, and they can either respond with motion to dismiss or a answer. So really, a lot of it depends on how the defendants respond, but also they could open up on their own free will, and we're actually already seeing signs of that. One school, Enterprise High School, one of the defendants listed in the complaint, they've already agreed starting Monday to open full time. And other schools are considering open full time as well.
That's great. So perhaps as a result of our filing this lawsuit, we've helped give people the intestinal fortitude, perhaps, to move forward.
Yeah.
That's great news. We hope it's just the beginning and that more schools will follow suit. That's awesome. So thanks so much for walking us through this. I'm sure that we'll be coming back to give updates as they come. And I think it's time for us to take a break.
If you like what we do and you want to see more of it, please consider making a small financial contribution. The Freedom Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit and all donations are 100% tax deductible. Visit freedomfoundation.com/donate.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. We also want to talk about something that happened last week that goes along with all of these COVID restrictions and the lawsuits that we have. We actually have lawsuits in Washington State and Oregon on these COVID restrictions. We got a good bit of news last week. A federal judge in Western Pennsylvania ruled that that state's governor, Tom Wolf, his COVID restrictions were unconstitutional. And that's definitely a welcome change from what we're seeing out here on the West Coast. Mariah, what'd you think of the ruling? Did you read any of it?
I did. I mean, very cursory review, but I was really pleased with what I saw because it's the first time a judge has actually limited the governor's emergency powers. What we're seeing all across this country is governors implementing their police powers in whatever fashion they deem necessary, and that is very dangerous and could set a very, very dangerous precedent. Because the reality is they have to abide by the Constitution. Constitutional rights are not suspended during a pandemic. And so this judge correctly held that he cannot usurp the Constitution.
Well, that's true. And I know that a lot of people have been concerned for an increasing amount of time now that we're giving up are going to be hard fought to get back. This U.S. District Court Judge, William Stickman IV, he sided with plaintiffs that included hair salons, drive-in movie theaters, a farmer's market, and a horse trainer, that the governor's restrictions have been overreaching and arbitrary and basically amounted to the government picking winners and losers. But Mariah, one thing that was interesting, the mask order was not included in the decision. Do you know, is there a reason for that? Was it not included in the initial complaint? Were they not complaining about mask mandates? What are your thoughts on that?
I actually didn't. I didn't see the complaint. I only read about the ruling, so I'm not sure if they included the mask mandate. But I don't think any court in the entire country has ruled that the mask mandates are overreaching.
Yeah, I know that we have mask mandate lawsuits in Washington and Oregon, and the courts so far have unfortunately been too willing to give the governors these new emergency powers. Yeah, so we'll see what happens there as our other cases move forward, and we'll of course keep everyone updated. So Mariah, the judge in this case in Pennsylvania said that, we're having the government pick winners and losers. That's also what we're seeing on the West Coast. So how do you think this ruling might have an impact on the lawsuits that we have going on?
Well, unfortunately, I don't think the ruling will have a real impact because it was based under the federal Constitution's free exercise clause, and we're suing under the California Constitution. I mean, it's great though because it for the people of Pennsylvania, but we just have to hope that the judges also do what's in California, do what is best for the school children.
Sure. Well, we can only hope that more judges take a look at this decision, and as they are hearing more cases, that they will decide likewise. So we hope. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our, I don't know what you would call it. Is this episode 6.2?
6.5? I don't know.
6.5? 6.5? Yeah. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this discussion. And Mariah, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's watching us at home. And we'll be back soon with another podcast, actual episode 7. Thank you.
Thanks.